Okay. All right, everybody. We're going to get ready to get started and welcome the one and only. I always Chef DJ.
Good afternoon, everybody. I might be too loud. Y'all can hear me, right?
Yes.
The room got a nice echo. So I'm BJ Dennis. I'm born and raised here in Charleston, West Ashley, near Maryville. Family roots. I'll explain my roots. My family roots is actually, so we say we cousins, Dr. Mary and I, because my grandfather and her grandmother used to talk on the phone every other day. Because my grandfather is from Daniel Island, his patriarchal side was Daniel Island. His father was from Daniel Island. My grandmother, Mary Portia Dennis, is from King Hall area, what we call the Hills. My mother is actually from Allendale County, South Carolina, which people don't consider part of Florida, but it is, because the only thing I know where, I don't know if y'all know the word Kuda. They got a Kuda festival, which is turtle in our culture. And I always say that they speak more like a freshwater Geechee. My grandmother would say words like churn, mookie. I'm not gonna say that in front of the kids, but my grandmother would say these words. I always say like you hear James Brown speak, same like my grandmother would speak. So I think that's more of an inland dialect. You know, there's sub-dialects of our language. Even when we speak in Charleston, different areas. My grandmother spoke for the same song. My grandmother speaks more like up there. I got a real fast tongue when I speak. Like this is super rough. But we'll talk about okra today. I would love, even if you hate it, my grandma makes the best okra soup. My memories of okra soup is my grandmother. All my family makes it. It's my grandmother, because my grandfather planted okra up until he was 85 years old. My grandma can't stand okra. She will not eat it. But my memories is always eating her part of okra soup. And if you're from the culture, and if you're married to a man from the culture, even if you don't like okra, if he won't make the okra pot, you gotta make the okra pot. That's how important okra is to us. So yeah, my first memories of eating okra is as a kid. Well, my first memories of really planting okra with my grandfather. We would be in the field with him until in the early days, me and my cousins, when we go up there, we had to learn to differentiate between the weed and the baby plant. So you basically have free labor. But we know about okra. Okra is, if you look in the old manifests of slave ships, it was documented as we were cargo. It was also seeds, okra seeds, bene seeds, which we know as sesame. Ngumbo is a Bantu word, which means okra in the Bantu language. The Ashanti call it something else. But when we think of okra, we think of these dishes, and I always say okra soup. That is the dish of Charleston, and that tells the story of the heritage, in my opinion. Because you can't, as much as the mainstream of Charleston, I was a kid, push a certain story, but when you eat the food of Charleston, I don't care what your racial background is influenced mostly by our culture. You have this dish called okra soup. You put the hashtag online. You go on Facebook and hashtag okra soup. It's going to take you to Nigeria. It's going to take you to Ghana. It's going to take you to the Casamance region of Senegal, and parts of Senegal, where they eat a dish called okra soup. So to me, okra symbolizes a lot of the history. It also symbolizes what heritage really influenced this area, even through the problems of enslavement and not being able to express ourselves fully as a people. That still shows you how heavy our influence was. And they will never admit that, but when you eat dishes like that, which is the dish of Charleston, there was a poem or a song saying Louisiana or New Orleans loves gumbo and Boston is baked beans, but in Charleston is okra soup. Okra soup is documented in recipes in Charleston before 1830. And always typically cooked in a clay pot. So the Catawba Indians, who people don't realize the Catawba, certain segments of the Catawba they would sell their wares. They would come from the Rock Hill region of South Carolina and North Carolina, and they would travel all the way down to the coast. Actually, they would set up on Edison Island too. But on their travels, they would start the plantations. They were able to trade and sell with enslaved people. They're also low-key telling enslaved people trade escape routes through these areas. The Catawba also have their own okra, but in the South Carolina Museum right now, there is a Catawba okra pot. It's a clay pot. When you read the old narratives in Charleston of the old the housewives at Charleston said you can't make a pot of okra soup without a clay Catawba pot. You really don't see Catawba pots no more. And if you do get your hands on one, it's really expensive, and rightfully so. Just like our sweetgrass baskets, they are works of art. But these pots were used. I mean, you can look at the history. Mainly, okra soup was cooked in the clay pot. Why? Because if you do it in the cast iron pot, which I've done, the cast iron from it turns that red color dark. I got one of my favorite people. You smile at me, Miss Charlotte. I'm gonna put you on the spot. The Charlotte Jenkins was an inspiration to me. But I moved back to Charleston. I lived in the Virgin Islands. I lived in St. Thomas 2003, 2008. And I came back home and I was always looking for us in our restaurants. Because I've been a chef, I've been cooking since '98. Started off as a dishwasher. And I remember coming home, you know about this restaurant called Gullah Cuisine. I was looking, I met Miss Charlotte, and ever since then, I always feel like I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing, speaking how I'm speaking to y'all, if it wasn't for the work of people like Miss Charlotte and others in our community, Miss Sally Ann Robinson down on the Fusky Island, people who've been doing this. My own family, my grandmother, elders, so for me, I'm just a manifestation of a voice for a lot of ours, people who've been doing this work. But sorry, I had to go on a tangent. Sorry, Miss Charlotte, you like that. But yeah, so okra soup. So okra is very important to us. Right now, it's the time of year to be planting okra. I'm a little late right now, my okra. But we got 2 planting seasons with okra a lot of times. A lot of the folks say I just did my 7th planting of okra. First planting is usually, my grandfather always said 2nd or 3rd week of April. A lot of people say Good Friday. And then this time of year, June, July, you can squeeze in a 2nd crop for the fall. Mine are probably like this big right now. But we're getting good rain. I live down in Low Bottom. Anybody know Low Bottom? I don't live in Charleston no more. I live in Low Bottom, which is Okra, which is in between Beaufort and Bluffton. But still a part of the corridor. Beautiful area. Beautiful area. Beautiful people too. You still sometimes the elders still you hear the old dialect when they speak. But a lot of the farmers down there were telling me they just started their 2nd planting of the okra. So okra is, even if you don't like it, well, first of all, who likes okra? A lot of people don't care for it. They're too slimy.
So love it.
Love it. Love it. Okay. But like I said, even if you don't, like I said, my grandmother can't stand okra. My grandmother cannot stand okra. My daddy don't like okra. Because as a child, he had to go to school in the morning where they were in the field, picking that okra and it was sticky. And everybody's okra pot is different. Some people like it when you still got that firm, the pot is still nice and have texture. Some people like it when it's just kind of thick. I say the thing on my mood and how I feel. The other day I made a pot, I put it on Instagram, and it was one picture I said I can stop right there, but I was feeling like, I wanted something a little thick that day, so I let it cook down a little more. And everybody put something different in it. My grandfather, he hunted, he fished. His favorite thing was watching vegetables grow. But he did go out in the creek. And the passion that he made by hand that he was teaching me, I was young, I was 20, so I didn't want to stuff and sit with him and constantly finish learning it. But he would bring back this small creek shrimp. And if you know the history of Charleston, back in the day when you had the shrimp man, the vegetable ladies, all people in the streets, it was the sought after shrimp was the ones that were caught by the cast net. So my grandfather, we had these little small shrimp, which my auntie said the other day that like second youngest aunt was low key throw in the trash because she didn't like peel them. And granddaddy found out, he was like, you know what, you ain't gotta worry about doing this no more. So that was her way of not having clean shrimp no more. But there's always a soup bone. Soup bone, it can be, beef bone, ham. You got that. You got a creature, my grandfather, and a lot of beans or city beans. Now, city beans are a sort of a lot of beans, but when you hear old people speak, they say, I want some city beans. City beans are a smaller lima bean that was also one of the few vegetables that we know that would come from the coastal Indians. The seaweed, which y'all know y'all old people on the street, got the seaweed. That was from their culture. So when you hear our old people speak, they talk about city beans. So, city, okra, and the beautiful okra together, it's a smoked meat. I think truthfully, in the colonial period with slavery, we saw a lot of smoked fish because they had more access to that than we do now, beef or pork. And I realized, I say that because I just came back from Casamance, West African Senegal, in the Right region, and with their super conjure, it's small fish. Now, when we look at the fact that our people never really documented, particularly during slavery, because now, we got to make common sense. They had access to so much fish. And salting, a lot of the older men, they will tell me, like my grandfather said, growing up. Well, first of all, growing up, he said they kept salted fish on the line, dried shrimp, put on blue tops. And also, drying oysters. But my grandfather also said that his favorite okra soup was one of the winters that Mama did. The dried shrimp from the winter, we put the summer they dried, the okra that was dried. My granddad is still living, two of them, still living on James Island. They married some men to James Island, so I grew with James Island. And my granddad tells me straight up, that was her favorite okra, was the one in the winter time. My granddad tells me, you could have snuck a mile down the road. The dried shrimp, dried okra, preserved tomatoes, which either would have been sun-dried or preserved in the can. You constitute that in the pot. You see a mile down the road, you can smell that. And so there are different levels to the dishes too. A lot of things, over time we lost. Nobody's no longer preserving shrimp like that. You got freezing, right? But that tells a story about our food culture too, and what the food culture used to be. There's so much different manifestations of it. Okra, like I said, is so important to the culture, so important to our story, our history. It's my favorite dish. You can't get me out of the raw. We do know that okra also, the seeds were used as coffee. There's parts of Mexico where there's Afro-Mexicans. There's certain, I was just in Mexico last November in an Afro-Mexican community. And they talk about certain parts of that region where they grew okra, they used to see the coffee. And that was done here too. Like I said, every generation we lose something, right? Modernization, particularly in America. We want convenience. Because a lot of that stuff wasn't easy work. It was survival. You call that fish, like that didn't have no refrigerator or freezer coming out. So the fish they caught, they had to preserve some way, like salt and egg on the something covering, like a cloth, like you fly. You preserve the okras. The okra leaves are something that I'm very proud of too. We don't eat okra leaves like we should. It's edible. And I remember that a friend of mine, true story, Facebook, Instagram friend, her aunt lives in Cross with peaches. She migrated out of Charleston to Cross, and she shared a story with me. The peaches shared a story with me about how they would hang the okra leaves that were dried and grind up and make soup. Like I said, there's so many different levels to our food ways because we are documenting food that we eat, that we love, chicken salad, mac and cheese, it was stuff that the enslavers or the colonizers loved, so they would look at that books. The stuff that we really did wasn't really documented. You didn't write it down. You couldn't read it right. And it didn't have, it wasn't looked at. The way you study what these enslaved people did, it seemed important. I can go off, I can go off and talk about, like sesame. Sesame was a document. You pay attention to Sesame? Yep. And he said that when Negroes start coming up watch, then they see to America from West Africa. They live in soups and soups, they broth with it, they use the oil for the salads, and they make it in breads. Now we see Benny, we're talking over this right now. We see Benny seed. What do we see that right now? The city market, right? It was not even real Benny seed. You know, so for me, it's about encouraging us to understand that there's a deeper level to the food. A lot of stuff that we love to eat. There's stuff that was in the books, but the stuff that our people did is about the land. There's an article, Seaside, X-Files, Seaside is a good episode. Seaside Negro, this is supposed to occur in sometime between 1910 and 1920. See how the Negro, Gullah's made. Tasty. You know, of course, back in the young one gave them fat. Tasty, but indigestible. Tasty and digestible. But this article is very, very unique. It's what we were eating. The husband was looking for the wife, but you know, back then, you know, the man looking for his wife was very rare. She was so excited, she came home, her cousin had a pot of pumpkin, which we don't think about in our culture a lot. We think of cereal. But pumpkin, just a gift from the neighbors. Pumpkin, soft shell crabs, in their jackets, meaning still in the shell. Stewed pumpkin, soft shell crab, curries, the pot of local button. What are you thinking about that? But that was part of the way of life because they had to live off the land. Pyramids are very small slaves. And we think it comes from love. But what I'm saying is like there's so much that I get in a rabbit hole sometimes looking at little articles that's going on in the world of what we really need in that sense. Because it's deeper than just what we see right now. Like I said, Dr. organizers pre-1830. He goes to the Charles Percy's cookbook, oldest Jubilee cookbook in America. What was in it? The Carolina Station. What was in it? Based on documents that they liked. But the things that we didn't see was a document that was felt as important to see what they say in the field or in the city gardens. So, I'm going to end by saying this. The food tells a story in history. You have the city and regional license. Embrace that. You can't deny the facts. You can't deny the facts. The fact that the rice dishes that we love, pearl, and the whole book called Counter Rice, these books have these recipes. I mean, there was this whole culture was based around rice. And when you talk about what you see, you know, what was that lake that was taken over by Lake Ocean? It was a former community. They had a whole different type of style of cooking out there. But all of it was based around rice. And so we understand that, you know, when we look at the history, we understand that we are the reasons why this region is rich. What sources there? Even though we need the love that we deserve. But also that our food culture, our food history is very different than what this looks. Something that is lost. Things that are lost. Like I go back to the English peaches. She also talked to me about Benny seeds. I was trying to find somebody who grew up eating the same. She did. Her father was her grandfather would take it. And anybody familiar with how this was tahini? They would take the Benny, the same thing. She would her father would take the Benny seed, toast it, grind it, mix it. It's very bitter. Bitter still was. Very bitter. And he would mix it with cane syrup. Sugar is sugar, there's different levels of sugar too. You know glycemic is glycemic. Cane syrup has a lot of minerals and nutrients. So they would mix that and they would eat that. These are things that my journey has brought to me trying to reconnect dots and reconnect things. That were truly lost when we were entering childhood. Every generation loses something. But the history is always there. And we can't forget that we have to dig deeper into our story, into our history, know who it is. Because our food is more than just 1918 to get sad. I love it. Y'all love it. trying to grasp at these little things that's out there, these little articles, just trying to find stuff. Like I said, the things that are documented is what the enslaved or the colonizer does. But it's deeper than that for us. So that's all I got to say, though. Any questions? I mean, that's it. I guess I talk over. But yes, big job on that time and see you get ready to work. You guys got questions?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. Usually the grandmothers of those who used to cook years ago, like DJ said, a lot of it was not written down. They didn't write down the recipe. It was all up here. And they cooked from scratch. You know, everything was either from the field or in, you know, the creek. So I just want to reiterate that. On Edisto Island, where I'm from, you know, we had our matriarch, Emily Nagy, and she cooked for years. She cooked at several plantations, but she really had the culinary skills when it comes to Geechee cooking. So, thank you.
Reverend Dennis from Grandpa.
I'm good.
Then what she wrote?
My mother? You probably think about my mother. Actually called Okra.
Okay.
So you can join there, Geechee,
Share that. So your grandpa was still living.
passed away around
I was confused when I heard you talking. I just remember Reverend Dennis. Okay. Sure thing.
Any other questions?
Well, oh, yes.
Are there places where you can buy the authentic okra soup, like on a retail basis?
Or like in a store type thing?
Yeah. I don't see it anywhere.
I mean, you still got restaurants who do it. You know, My Three Sons in North Charleston. You got Hannibal's downtown. East Cooper Disco down the road here in Mount Pleasant. Mr. Coffee at Sweet Shop in the Old Village. He does okra soup on Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't remember what day. Wow. And then everybody else's house.
How about like recipe books or something like that?
Yeah,
Do you
this
have
is an all. It's any old Charleston cookbook will have okra soup in it. I mean, it's
Show
in
them
it.
receipts.
Oh, Miss Charlotte Jenkins too. You can book her. Miss Charlotte, yeah, Miss Charlotte.
Yes, I cookbook and the recipe of the okra soup is in that book. The book is named the book is Gullah by Land by Sea, author Charlotte Jenkins. Yeah, you'll get a good flavor of okra soup from that recipe, and it's online. I didn't hear you. I did, but I
Her book is one of the better books.
Could you repeat the name of that?
Gullah Cuisine from Land and Sea by
Land and Sea.
Charlotte
I think
Jenkins.
they have it downstairs.
And it might be there. Somebody might have it downstairs. The Gullah Museum might be selling.
anyone interested, I will have a book in about 20 minutes.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. What were the similarities for you between Casamance, Senegal, and the Low Country?
She asked me what was the similarities between.
Give him the mic. No,
Check.
So what are the similarities between Casamance, Senegal, which is in the Senegambia region, and Low Country? Well, I'm gonna tell you straight up, it looked just like Low Country, and the Senegambia region. If y'all know, at one point, Charleston, it might have been 20 years straight that in slavery only went to the Senegambia, to the synagogue in Gambia. They only went there because of rice, of the rice growers. Rice growing is a science. When I was in Casamance, I realized that this is my second time there. I was there. COVID hit. Right when COVID hit, I went to synagogue. But I only spent like 3 days in Casamance. I said, like, those 3 days, I gotta go back to the whole time there. So I knew the connection. But I always see the rights, spirituality. Because I saw the ladies doing dances that, you know, in the church lady in the spirit coming up. And I heard the clap. And this was just in the spirit. This is them in the village celebrating. I started to clap. And I saw this dance that was in the mountain Christ, the temple, that spirit church. They were doing that. It was in Casamance. Their okra soup is very similar. Obviously, they use palm oil. Palm oil. We don't know that. We could have paid, you know, but it wasn't something we had with palm trees. It was palm nuts here. But the stew, the way they do, they got a dish called pavo. It's called, I'm not saying it, but it's a stew fish dish. Very similar. But what I saw there was rice was spiritual for everybody there. It wasn't nothing like, it was spiritual. And I realized that something that was spiritual for our ancestors, they were brought here with weaponized against it. So, like I said, I live down in the Buford area now. And I'm always passing the Harry Tubman Bridge. We don't realize that that should be a sacred site for us just to stop at the moment. Because when Harry Tubman came, he came on those gunner boats with the Black Regiment. Coming through those rice plantations. You know what she saw? 3:30 a.m. They were still in the rice fields working because they were staying in the field and what was going on. They thought they were still getting money. 3:30 a.m. They were running out of the rice fields. And I said, well, I'm saying, this is March. I might get that wrong. Anyway, 3:30 was dark. You know what's going on at that time of year? Snakes won't start running around here. I don't care how cold it is. 3:30 a.m. They were in the rice fields. So what I say, that something that is spiritual, when I go to Casamance, it's a celebration. Ladies are dancing with rice in their hair. It was spiritual for us. Now we came back across here, it was weaponized against us. You know, these rice fields, which is the biggest landmass you can see from outer space. There's a rice field in South Carolina, Florida. The biggest marginally landmass. You understand what I'm saying? That these people did this by hand. They were animals. And I was really even trying to pull that tree outside right there. We were pulling cypress trunks. So when I think about this, what I think about synagogue is how something that was so spiritual to them was now taken. Our ancestors were weaponized against us. And even now to this day, you know, like my friend from synagogue, I showed him some of the history and stuff. And he said to me, oh, they still exploited our rice fields. I didn't even think about what I had to think about it. He said, they still exploiting y'all rice fields. But think about it, yeah, it was all our rice fields. Because it was our technique, it was our science, our mathematics, our engineering. That this was done today, it would be a popular science magazine. It was that knowledge that was taken. That's our history. So, yeah, that's my biggest thing about synagogue. I was supposed to be going back. I was supposed to go back to offices. They actually wanted me to come. They wanted to give me a whole rice field, plant rice, and they would ship it over to me. Because that's how much they respected. They learned. They're learning about history because this history was separated from each other. We don't even know our whole history about rice down here. We don't know when we ride up and down 17, when we see, when we go down to Georgetown, the Santee Delta, it's beyond amazing. It's beyond amazing. And those histories are very important. And my grandfather told me they had a rice pond in the back of the property. You know, the rice field today is not what it was back then. So, yes. Any other questions? I don't hold y'all up. And thank y'all for your time.
Y'all give a piece of see everybody out there. Thank you all for joining us. I hope you all learned something about Okra today. Y'all ready for your quiz? I'm a teacher, sorry.